What if Majora's Mask wasn't just a game, but something much more sinister? Here, I will explain. Hey there everyone, welcome back to another episode of Creepypasta Recaps. Today we'll be exploring the Shingeki no Kongu, otherwise known as King Kong in the United States. King Kong's story probably takes place in a parallel universe to Ben Drowned, but there are plenty of returning characters as you'll see in the following episodes. While the popularity of King Kong is unquestionable, the mangaka of the story Alex Hall has been embroiled in a slight controversy ever since introducing this character. The episode opens with our hero, King Kong, running to another part of Clocktown to escape a newly formed elegy statue. Kong makes his way through West Clocktown, which is missing most of its ground textures. The missing ground textures here represent an aesthetic of absence that echoes Majora's Mask's central themes: the ephemeral nature of time, the inevitability of decay, and the unsettling realization that even reality itself may be nothing more than an unfinished construct, waiting to be filled in. The game resets. The only available file, Your Turn, is selected. King Kong encounters the Skull Kid on top of the clock tower, and is lifted and set on fire, but does not die. After returning to his normal stance and waiting several seconds, he equips the drums of sleep. The puzzled queries of the Skull Kid are cut short as suddenly we hear music. It is the song King Kong by Jibs featuring Chameleonaire. We all have moments in our lives where we feel that a metaphorical haunted demonic statue is closing in on us from all sides. It can be overwhelming and feels like it's inescapable, but with a strong resolve in using the power of music we can escape the darkness, much like how King Kong does here. King Kong begins playing King Kong on top of the clock tower, then on the mushroom with Kamuro, then with the Indigogos, then back to Kamuro again, and finally for an unimpressed construction worker, but he doesn't let it faze him. He then begins to dance before traveling back in time, breaking the space-time continuum. After arriving back in South Clocktown, the game freezes and resets. We return to the title screen. There are two files that read Your Turn and Ben. The player erases the Ben file, then replaces it with the new one, Swag GGGG. He selects Swag GGGG. The song King Kong is playing as King Kong appears, bent to the side and outside of Stone Tower Temple. When you read into the subtext in this episode, the mangaka makes a brilliant statement that sometimes even when you break free from a dark malevolent statue, it still can have a hold on you and make you wind up in front of an ancient temple. Sometimes things don't go the way you want them to, and that's okay. King Kong then bursts into dance again and taps into his newfound space-time powers. A new montage includes Kong running through Clocktown, headbanging for the Link Elegy and the Banker, and busting some fresh moves at the Swordsman School. He plays the Song of Soaring and flies away, the music following him as he leaves. A very powerful statement that music and humanity are inextricably linked together. As he appears at Ikana Canyon, the music fades back in with him and Kong enters Ikana Castle, killing some Redeads before examining his saved pictograph and entering the main chamber. The game freezes to Navi's cry of "Watch out," and the words, "Ben is getting lonely," appear. King Kong then appears dazed inside the moon. He casually rolls toward the tree, and the song King Kong begins to play again. When he arrives, he finds both the Goron and Link Elegy statues before getting sucked into a wind turbine off-screen. We then cut to the city of East Clocktown. Kong is finally shown to be passed out in front of the milk bar. He rises, takes a hearty swig of milk, and the view fades. A still of Kong, the happy masked salesman, and the Link Elegy all posing is shown with the final King Kong in the trunk. What the author masterfully conveys in this sequence is the cyclical absurdity of identity, memory, and self-destruction within the digital ether. King Kong's desperate flight from the elegy statue, his own unmoving effigy, parallels humanity's inescapable confrontation with the self, a haunting reminder that we are both the pursuer and the pursued. The resetting game file reflects the fragility of existence, where the erasure of Ben, a digital ghost, is a futile attempt to overwrite trauma, yet it only births a more absurd and meaningless moniker, Swag GGGG. The sudden intrusion of King Kong by Jibs, an anachronistic intrusion of consumerist bravado into a decaying world, underscores the performative nature of identity. King Kong, once a warrior, now dances through his own unraveling. His movements, headbanging for statues, entertaining a dead-eyed banker, mirror our own desperate attempts to construct meaning through performance. The final act, a futile swig of milk before the abyss, reduces existence to a shallow, looping gesture. And yet, the final image, King Kong, the happy masked salesman, and the elegy statue, posing, suggests that perhaps selfhood is nothing more than an ongoing act, a memified husk of authenticity. Ultimately, the final phrase, King Kong in the trunk, resonates as an almost postmodern epitaph, a declaration that meaning is dead, and all that remains is the aesthetic of its absence. We then cut to Link beginning his ascension into Super Saiyan 3 and the episode ends. Following the massive success of King Kong, the author did the sensible thing and took a decade-long hiatus before making the sequel, which also takes place 10 years after the events of the first episode. King Kong 2 begins with a friendly man asking for the viewer's credit card number before the opening credits introduce us to a completely unfamiliar cast of characters. We open to Kong wandering aimlessly in the desert while Adam Jensen explains that Kong has become a washed-up celebrity and has set out to rediscover his swagger. Meanwhile, Matt Mercer convinces the Indiegogos to start sacrificing small children, and Adam Jensen gets tired of narrating and decides to skip ahead in the story, fast-forwarding through the introduction and tragic death of Kong's sidekick and best friend. After a heartbreaking journey, King Kong arrives at the Decode Palace and finds a weird man in tights and a magic bean man to unlock his hidden powers of swagger. He learns about meme magic and discovers that he used it to defeat Ben years ago. However, Kong's training is cut short when he gets cancelled on Twitter and becomes a wanted criminal. Meanwhile, Matt Mercer betrays the Indiegogos and opens a dimensional gateway to summon the father. Matt Mercer trades outdated barbs with King Kong, and another character that Adam Jensen skipped over challenges Kong to an anime fight. Kong uses the powers of meme magic to defeat his rival and turns to face Matt Mercer. King Kong fully embraces meme magic and begins a choreographed dance-off for several minutes before brandishing his bongos to play the legendary song. He plays the first note and the overwhelming power of his swagger is too much and the world explodes, killing everyone. A bewildered Adam Jensen leaves the recording booth and we are treated to the end credits. This episode, like the previous, is indulgent with powerful and complicated themes that would go over the heads of most people, but luckily this channel dissects complicated narratives for our audience. King Kong's full embrace of meme magic, manifested in a meticulously choreographed dance-off, transcends mere absurdity and enters the realm of post-ironic digital mysticism. The prolonged dance sequence is not just indulgent spectacle, it is a ritual, an invocation of latent cultural energies that have long dictated the chaotic ebb and flow of the internet's unconscious. And yet, even as he ascends to a higher state of meme-induced divinity, the weight of his own swagger proves unbearable, not because it is flawed, but because it is too perfect. Adam Jensen skipping over vital moments of the story with the careless authority of someone fast-forwarding through a film they've already seen as literary genius. Key revelations, emotional payoffs, even basic cause and effect are discarded with a flippant shrug as if their absence is a feature, not a flaw. The result is a narrative that refuses to hold the audience's hand, instead forcing them to grapple with the unsettling realization that coherence is optional. Why is King Kong now locked in a duel with an omnipotent demigod? It is ultimately irrelevant to the plot. Why did we skip over the life and death of the Deku sidekick, the most emotional and sympathetic tether to contextualizing the story? Not the point. Jensen's narration is not a guide but a challenge, daring the viewer to fill in the blanks or accept that in this story, understanding is neither guaranteed nor required. At the end of the story there is no aftermath. King Kong has reclaimed his swagger and saved the day. There are no survivors. As the end credits roll, the audience is denied any semblance of resolution, but for those who look closely, a hidden message remains in the end credits. Perhaps the true explosion was never physical. Perhaps it was the shattering of our understanding of media narratives itself. Thank you for joining me today as we conclude the Shingeki no Kyojin series. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more creepypasta recaps. This episode was brought to you by NordVPN. Start your free trial today at nordvpn.com and use checkout code creepypasta recaps promo 534550 for 5% off your first month.